The legendary Route 66 has long been synonymous with adventure and freedom, a lifeline connecting cities, deserts, and hearts across the United States. It is a road steeped in history, lined with iconic motels, neon signs, diners, and the whispers of countless travelers who've passed through. Yet, behind the romanticized vision lies a shadowy underbelly, secrets buried in the sands of time, echoes of despair and restless souls. Among these tales, none is darker or more chilling than the story of the Dust Haven Motel. Nestled in an isolated stretch of the desert, the Dust Haven Motel is a relic of a bygone era, its faded sign barely visible through layers of rust and dust. Once a welcoming refuge for weary motorists, it is now a crumbling skeleton. Its walls cracked and sagging, windows either boarded or shattered, and its corridors silent except for the ghostly whispers carried on the desert winds. The locals call it cursed, travelers say it's haunted. But the motel does not discriminate. It calls to those who wander close, promising rest, but delivering something far more sinister. It all began in the early 1950s, a time when cross-country travel was booming, and the Dust Haven thrived. Families, truckers, and wanderers alike would stop here for a night's rest, unaware that the motel harbored a darkness lurking beneath its worn exterior. Early reports were subtle cold spots in certain rooms, lights flickering inexplicably, and fleeting figures glimpsed from the corner of the eye. But the atmosphere thickened with every passing year, and soon the motel earned a reputation as a place where the veil between the living and the dead was thin. One of the earliest chilling tales involved Harold Jenkins, a long-haul trucker whose encounter remains one of the most widely recounted in the area. Harold stopped at Dust Haven on a rainy autumn night, exhausted from hours behind the wheel. He checked into room 7B, settling in with a sigh, hoping for a restful sleep. But at midnight, he awoke to soft, crying, faint sobs drifting through the walls. He called out, but no answer came. In the morning, he found wet footprints leading from the bathroom to the door, stopping abruptly, as if whoever made them vanished into thin air. This incident, though unsettling, was only a prelude to the motel's darkest chapter, the disappearance of the Miller family. George and Martha Miller, traveling with their 2 children, checked in during the summer of 1953. The Millers were a typical family, hopeful for a break during their journey westward. But neighbors overheard heated arguments and unsettling cries. The children were reportedly seen talking to invisible entities, their expressions twisted with fear. Then, one morning, the Millers vanished without a trace, their room untouched, their car abandoned miles away on the highway. Despite an exhaustive search, no clues surfaced. In the years that followed, guests began sharing tales of shadowy figures, doors slamming without cause, and mirrors reflecting faces that weren't their own. Whispers echoed down the hallways, and the temperature dropped drastically in certain rooms. The motel's allure faded, and by the late 1980s, it shuttered, its doors left to decay under the scorching desert sun. But the darkness never left. Fast forward to the summer of 2015. Mark, Lisa, and Ryan, college friends, drawn by the thrill of adventure and the supernatural, decided to document a road trip along Route 66. Their journey led them to the Dust Haven Motel, just as the sun began its descent. The motel's crumbling facade, set against the fiery sky, was both haunting and hypnotic. Stepping inside, the trio was greeted by an oppressive silence, the stale air thick with dust and forgotten memories. Faded photographs, yellowed newspapers, and broken furniture told stories of a time long gone. But beneath the surface lurked something far more sinister. As darkness swallowed the desert, strange sounds began to echo, a soft whispering calling their names, shadows moving just beyond the edge of their vision, and cold spots that chilled them to the bone. In room 13B, the epicenter of the motel's hauntings, the atmosphere shifted. Their flashlights flickered and dimmed. Lisa saw a pale face in the cracked mirror, a face with hollow eyes that seemed to pierce her soul before vanishing. Suddenly, the door slammed shut, trapping them inside. The whispering escalated into anguished screams. Shadows flickered and elongated, cold fingers brushed their skin, and time itself seemed to warp, stretching moments into an endless nightmare. The friends clung to each other, hearts pounding, until the first light of dawn finally broke through the dusty windows. When the door creaked open, they fled the motel, forever changed. The footage Mark later reviewed showed a shadowy figure with glowing red eyes, silently watching from the darkness. Since then, the Dust Haven has drawn many curious souls, ghosts, hunters, thrill-seekers, and the fearless. Some return with chilling tales. Others vanish without a trace. The motel remains, a monument to tragedy and terror, waiting silently for its next visitors. Not far from that desert nightmare, Hollow Creek Road twists and winds through the dense forests of rural Pennsylvania, a forgotten path that few dare to travel after sunset. It is a road cloaked in shadow, bordered by gnarled trees that seem to lean closer with each passing mile, whispering secrets lost to time. At its end stands the ruins of Greystone Asylum, an institution abandoned for decades but never quite empty. The asylum was built in the early 1900s, a towering brick fortress designed to contain the troubled and the forgotten. For decades, Greystone housed the mentally ill, its halls echoing with the cries of the desperate and the disturbed. Stories of mistreatment, cruel experiments, and unexplained deaths seeped into the town's collective memory. When the asylum finally closed in the late 1970s, the building was left to rot, swallowed slowly by nature and the creeping fog that often blankets Hollow Creek. Local legends say that Greystone never truly closed, that the spirits of those who suffered there remain trapped within its crumbling walls, bound by pain and unfinished business. People speak of hearing screams in the dead of night, of flickering lights in windows long shattered, and of shadowy figures wandering the overgrown grounds. It was in the fall of 2017 that 3 urban explorers, Jason, and Mark, decided to uncover the truth behind the asylum's dark reputation. Armed with flashlights, cameras, and a thirst for adventure, they ventured down Hollow Creek Road, just as the sun dipped behind the trees. The air grew colder with every step, a biting chill that seemed to seep into their bones. As they approached Greystone, its silhouette loomed against the twilight sky, broken windows, like empty eye sockets, staring into the forest. The front doors hung open, inviting and menacing at once. Inside, the air was thick with dust, mold, and the faint metallic scent of old blood. Their footsteps echoed through vast hallways lined with rusted beds, broken furniture, and peeling walls stained with the ghost of decades past. Whispers seemed to brush past their ears, soft voices calling out names they didn't know. In the east wing, they discovered a hidden staircase leading down to the basement, a place rumored to hold the asylum's darkest secrets. Heart-pounding, they descended into the blackness. The flashlight beams danced over rusty medical equipment and graffiti scrawled by those long gone. Then, they found the rooms where patients had been subjected to horrific experiments, padded cells with claw marks etched deep into the walls. Suddenly, a cold gust swept through the corridor, extinguishing their lights. Panic set in as the darkness pressed close. Emma's voice trembled as she whispered that she could hear footsteps, slow, deliberate, approaching from the shadows. The trio moved as one, desperately trying to relight their flashlights. When the beams flickered back to life, they saw it, a pale figure in a tattered hospital gown standing at the far end of the hall, its eyes hollow and mouth twisted into a silent scream. Frozen with terror, they watched as the apparition glided toward them, passing through walls and leaving a trail of icy cold in its wake. The building seemed to breathe around them, walls pulsating with unseen energy, the past bleeding into the present. They fled the basement and the asylum itself, never looking back. The experience left scars deeper than any physical wound, a shadow that clung to their minds and haunted their dreams. Since that night, Hollow Creek Road has remained largely deserted after dark. The asylum stands in quiet decay, a monument to human suffering and the supernatural forces that refuse to let go. If you ever find yourself near Greystone Asylum, heed this warning: some doors once opened cannot be closed. For more chilling stories like this, subscribe to Farcical Fears, where darkness lurks in every corner. What's the scariest thing ever happened to you? Tell me in the comments below.